When the blitz is on, you need to protect your most valuable asset. That's why the NFL looks to Cisco Security, powered by AI, to protect their data from cyber attacks. When the game is on the line, the NFL relies on Cisco.
Once again, just letting them know that we appreciate them, and kind of talked about it this morning in the squad meeting, and it was like a reminder of how old I'm getting, that we have people in the squad room that didn't live that experience. But everyone in here did live that experience, and we remember where we were during that experience, and I don't want that to go unnoticed. Secondly, I would say, just to wrap up last week before we get on to Seattle, I do think it's important to recognize some of the players that may not get all the stories written about them or anything like that, but we have practice players of the week. And I tell the guys every week that the process is important, and the practice players, they make sure they do a good job going out there, giving us a good look and preparing us for the game. And so after going forward, after wins, only after wins, we'll have a list of practice players. So for this week, it was Eric Johnson, O'Shawn Mathis, Joe Giles Harris, A.J. Thomas, Joe Milton, Kayshon Boutte, Mitch Wilcox, and Curtis Jacobs. Thought those guys went out there and gave us a good look and gave us a chance to win the football game.
Going back to your first statement, what are your thoughts on Joe Cardona and what he does on and off the field?
Yeah, I have nothing but love and respect for Joe. I actually had him go up and speak to the team, and when that happened, what he talked about was, when that happened, just the rallying of all the, let's say, 18-year-olds that really are like, we got to sign up and join the military and really protect our nation. Look, Joe has two jobs. He has two jobs, and football is the second one. The first one is as a serviceman, to serve our country. And I think all the players in the locker room understand, how tough it is for him, and at the same time have a great appreciation for everything he does.
Jerod, can we go down that road a little further? I take it you were probably in high school at the time.
Yeah, so I was in school. I just remember everyone having to go to the cafeteria, and they just turned on the TVs, and it was crazy. I'm a military brat-ish. My grandfather was a chief master sergeant. My mom's in the military as a civilian. My stepdad also in the military, so I understand and understood what was going on. At the same time, it was one of those things where you just feel like you're in a dream and don't really, you don't think it's real. I will say there is significance even here in the Northeast. I think one of the flights actually took off from Boston. Both of them took off from Boston. Okay, yeah, so definitely significant here in this region.
Jerod, you mentioned your age just in that opening statement, which was very thoughtful, but going up against Mike Macdonald, another young rookie coach over in Seattle, have you guys crossed paths much? Have you been able to discuss coming from similar defensive backgrounds or anything along those lines?
No. I mean, it's a short answer. No, we haven't had any conversations. I've had conversations with other coaches around the league, but I haven't had the privilege to meet with Mike.
Obviously, Mike led one of the better defenses in the league last year in Baltimore. As you study them, their system, what kind of stands out about the way they like to play?
Yeah, I mean, everyone is a threat. When we talk about known rushers, it's really the unknown rushers that make that Baltimore defense special. Like, you don't know who's coming. They drop out defensive ends. They do things that are very similar to some of the things that we do as well. The zone blitzing and protecting the deep part of the field. And historically, they've always had a good defense, and they have a bunch of good players. So, yeah.
After the game, some cool players shouting, "Take the field," in the fourth quarter. Is that something you've heard before? And just your reaction?
No, that was the players, and we talked about artificially creating adversity during practice, and one of those ways is to go to the hill after a 2-hour and 15-minute practice where, you go one or two ways. One way is like, oh, man, I got to go to the hill, and the other way is, all right, we got to bust down through this wall and push our bodies. Because most of the time, and I tell the guys this all the time, like, your mind is going to give up before your body gives up. And so being able to do that and go to the hill or take them to the deep water, as we like to say, because we do have a lot of faith in our conditioning and what we've gone throughout the week and throughout the summer, the guys just started saying, like, most people say, fourth quarter, they were like, take them to the hill. And I love it. And that was from the players.
Jerod,
Sorry, the hill?
You and him? I think you did.
Yeah, I did. And one thing I would say is, at least from my perspective, it was always one of those times where I'm just going to prove everybody wrong anyway. In college, I remember in college making coaches so mad because in college what they would do, like say someone was late, they would get the whole team up and we would have to run and all that stuff. And that one guy wouldn't run. Right? And so I used to make the coaches mad because I would just keep running and I would be laughing the entire time. But being able to do that in tough times is definitely a good thing.
Jerod, what did Jerod Mayo, he was a healthy scratch on Sunday. Was that disciplinary at all, or can you just shed some light on that?
I don't want to get into a lot of that. What I will say is, he just has to continue to progress and continue to develop, both on the field and off the field, and that's my responsibility ultimately.
Jerod, what did Seattle show you offensively that has your eye on Sunday?
Yeah, I know. Most of the time we always talk about the quarterback first and foremost, which they have an experienced quarterback. What I would say is just the run game. I think Kenneth, he doesn't get a lot of hype. I don't know what his Madden rating is or anything like that, but when you turn on the film, like this guy pops off the film, and he's a very aggressive runner. He can do it all. And then you look at the receivers, different skill sets. There's a huge contrast between Lockett and Metcalf, but they have a good team. They have a good offense.
Jerod, how difficult is it to game plan against a team that only has one game of film, like with your coaching staff?
I mean, this is why I always preach about awareness. I mean, it kind of goes back to that conversation, and you guys will probably get tired of me saying it. But these games go back to awareness. It's about, you can watch the film, and at some point during the game, they will revert back to who they are. Now, in saying that, most teams script the first 15 plays as key-breaking type of plays, or to get the ball in the hands of one of the guys that has to get started early. Same thing in the second half. So you take the first 15 plays that are scripted to break the tendencies that we've watched on film, and this is why awareness, in my opinion, is more important than 60% of the time when they're in the gun, they're doing this. 60-40 is like, can't play like that.
You talked a little bit about Jacoby Brissett's ability to make plays with his legs. What have you seen from him and his ability to evade pressure?
Yeah, he has a good pocket presence, and this is a guy. Once again, he's a veteran player, and he went out there and did everything we expected him to do. And we talk about not turning over the ball, not taking negative plays, and I thought he did a good job with that. And historically, he has done a good job with that. And hopefully this week we'll see some progress.
You quoted Mike Tyson the other day. Everyone's got a game plan to get punched in the face. Going to that first game, you have some ideas of what this team's all about, but now heading in from week 1 to week 2, how important is that second week getting ready now that you have a better idea of the team?
Yeah. From an individual perspective, the biggest jump you should see out of your players is from year 1 to year 2, or week 1 to week 2. And I would say this week, not to look back at Cincinnati, but there are a lot of plays that we left out there. And I think the players recognize that. And so once you go to week 2, we expect everyone to be better. We know who's going to be out there in our units. You guys can stop asking about the offensive line and the quarterback and all that stuff. And now it's the time for those guys to gel. And we as coaches expect them to be better. And I did let them know, what got us the win in week 1 won't get us the win in week 2 if we don't continue to improve.
You guys were underdogs in week 1. You went into Cincinnati and won the game. You're underdogs again now at home here against Seattle. Is that something that you relish as a team, that underdog status that the players talk about it? What do you think?
No, they don't really talk about that. This goes back to the whole motivation, rah, rah, rah. And it's about discipline. And we can, I told you guys last week, there was no secret. We were going to run the football. And same thing with the players. If they talk to you guys, I'm the best receiver in the world. I'm the best receiver in the world. All right, you put it out there, but now you got to go out there and do it. And so that's kind of how I look at it.
Coach, it was a relatively quiet day from the receivers, but what did you see from that group on tape?
Yeah, those guys were doing the dirty work. And I would also say, if you turn on the film, we had guys open. And so when you go back to getting better from week 1 to week 2, we just got to find those guys and give them an opportunity to make plays.
Jerod, after the game, we learned you talked to Ramondre. You told him he might not be, a highly rated back around the league. You're one of the best. Jacoby talked about your conversation with him and how he cried before the game. Speaking to the players like that, was there an experience in your career where someone sent a message to you that really gave you affirmation as a player and what you could do? Or even as a coach?
I've always dealt with, we kind of talk about chips on your shoulder. I've always dealt with the imposter syndrome, where I always felt like I just wasn't good enough. And so I would just work extra hard. I can't really put my thumb on, what a coach said. I'm sure I had a coach over the years say something that changed the trajectory of my career. My thing is with the players, there's an element of the individual relationship and then also from the team relationship. And I just try to offer encouragement to some of the guys that they just need that little extra push. I've always thought that Ramondre was one of the best backs in the league. I've always thought that. A guy that can do it all, catch the ball at the backfield, a very patient runner, could break tackles. And now you guys, last week you got an opportunity to really see what he could do. And, going forward, one of his goals, probably shouldn't get into this, is, I'm not going to get into it. I'm not. But what I will say is those conversations, I'm not going to get into like what was said in those conversations, but it's just like one of those last minute, you can do this. Because as a player, there's going back to the anxiety versus excitement, that thin line there. Sometimes just having someone come put a hand on your shoulder, like, hey, you're going to go out there and perform well, is all you need.
I'm curious if you have a take on what happened with Tyreek Hill in Miami, and if you felt a need to talk to the team about it or use it as some kind of teaching tool.
No, I appreciate it. I'm not going to get too far into that, but what I will say is that I met with the captains, and we had a conversation on how to approach it as a team. And so those guys handle it in the locker room. It is a conversation, and we'll see how it goes, how it looks going forward.
Going back to the text. When you broadcast, hey, we're going to be a running football team. That's who we are. We don't care who knows. Eventually, there's an offensive philosophy that every defense can say, you know what, they're not running on us, and they'll commit everything.
And then we turn into a pass team. It's all built off. So when I say we're going to run the ball, all right, if you want to load up the box, then we'll throw the ball. And this is why I always tell the receivers and everyone else, run the route like you're getting the ball each and every play, because the game changes. It changes. It's one thing to sit there and say this is the game plan on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, but we have to be I talk about mental agility and being able to really change. Instead, the opposite of agility is rigidity. We can't be rigid in the way we play. We can't be rigid in the way that we think. And who knows, this week, Jacoby may throw for 300 yards or Ramondre may run for 200 yards. I really don't know, and that's why I come out here to say it. So thanks, guys.